DEVBLOG number 51. Philippe, lead programmer. This month I have been mostly focused on the new features for Pounce and finishing up some systems before moving on to the new pluggables. As for Pounce, the new slot swap system is finished, which allows players to manually swap slots when latched to a target by spending some stamina. It can be used to better coordinate with other pouncers or simply be used to avoid being knocked down when the target uses nearby trees or objects. Along with that, Pounce now has some incoming manual control to attack while latching. Latching onto players only causes a small amount of consistent damage, but allows players to tap, hold the primary attack button to do extra raw damage, or also tap, hold the secondary attack button to deal no raw damage, but high bleeding damage. Both actions spend stamina, but allows for more dynamic combat, giving players more control over what type of damage they're dealing to pounced victims. With this, bucking has become significantly more important for the victim, and it has received some major attention to prevent it being an unfun war of attrition. Lastly, some additional adjustments were made to the patrol zones that should help encourage players to explore the map and should be featured in the upcoming Horde test. Aerial, programmer. Most of my work this month was done on the Dinosaur. The Dinosaur will have the ability to switch between bipedal and quadrupedal stances, which affects its movement in different ways. The most time-consuming part, however, was setting up all the different interactions to support both stances. I also had to reorganize some existing data, but on the plus side, this also opens up the door to new mechanics such as sprinting while crouching. The Dinosaur will also have different attacks depending on its stance, which I will be working on next. Other than that, it's mostly been the usual bug fixes, but there were some quite significant balance changes as well. For one, the Carnotaurus has been made slightly smaller, which has an effect on its weight, which should feel more appropriately located within the roster while its speed is still being evaluated. I also updated the Stratosaurus's bacterial bite, which now takes into account the relative size of the two dinosaurs and also how much bacteria you have available. This has made it extremely effective against small target animals near its weight class, which has led to some interesting new space for the Stratosaurus. Programmer. Focus for me this month has been moving some of our smaller scavengers to a more robust and visually appealing system that allows more complex interactions. There are some new interactions coming to the world that involve this system, including some sound traps that will give away careless players. Psittacosaurus has received a few behavioral changes and bug fixing based on QA testing, with the hope to include it in the upcoming Horde test. They have a few burrowing locations throughout a few biomes, but can also be found in some sanctuaries. Lastly, I've made a new recon tool for internal use and hope to get that into public hands once it's been evaluated and tested. Wedge, sound designer. This month I've been working more on refining the Tyrannosaurus sounds. A lot of the sound palette of the calls has been changed, namely a lot of the source sounds being used for the core elements. Instead of relying almost solely on animal sounds, I started working with recording and processing new source from non-literal sounds, recording metal screeches and groans, glass squeals and moans, etc. This took a fair bit of experimenting to find the right source, which once found is then blended with the animal elements to help these sources sound more organic, as well as additional processing to give them a vocal quality such as modulated resonant filtering and tremolo. Specifically for each call, these are the main changes that have been made. Injected more dynamics and movement into the broadcast so it has more inconsistencies and is not just a flat note, as well as improve the mix of the different layers, mix improvements and more variations of the alternate broadcast, adding a distinct core to the generic call over the chunky gurgles and groans that it solely consisted of previously, reworked the danger call, reducing the amount of noise that was cluttering the mix from breath and roar layers, as well as creating a more unique core to the sound which will be easily identifiable, worked on blending the layers of the attract call better. Other tasks I have also worked on this month. Worked on an ambient cue for Trudon's venom that will spawn randomized vocal sounds during its new envenomation setup, same as for the Dilophosaurus, which has now also been implemented. Improved the timings of Urosaurus pounce attack vocal and Foley sounds, fixed Gallimimus mobilize call, Dryosaurus dodge vocal and Dinosaurus lunge vocal, in water, not playing. Started some early concepting on updating Maiasaur's calls to be in line with the sonic aesthetics. Tapwing, 2D artist. This month I got to work on some edits for the elder Diabloceratops, Baiasaurus and the juvenile, hatchling concepts for Ostroraptor. The direction for the little Ostros was to go in the opposite direction of the long and sleek adults, design-wise, and make the younger versions progressively rounder and fluffier the closer to hatchling you get. Needless to say, baby birds were a big inspiration, mainly that of fowls as well as some songbirds. On the flip end of cute fluffy dinos, I've been doing some additional work for the Gen 1 customization, including some close-ups and extra detailing of the alternate head variations to get the monstrous humanoid ready for the horror side of the aisle. Brian, animator, another busy month of animation. Been hard at work on a number of dinosaurs. Triceratops sparring is really coming along. I recently completed the horn locking and it really is impressive how solidly two Triceratops lock together when sparring as opposed to how freely a Diabloceratops could move. Also been working on getting Ostroraptor finalized and ready for animation. Its rig has a lot of moving parts, but it's all come together and a few people on the animation team are already working with it to get its list of animations done. A few of the other animals we've been working on, like Triceratops, Maiasaura or Diabloceratops, have been in legacy and had some animations we could reuse, but Ostroraptor is different in that it has a whole new skeleton and everything has to be remade from scratch. Lastly, Tyrannosaurus has been featured heavily in my current workload while getting its more advanced locomotion animations completed as we continue to polish the sparring and life stages. Hypno, QA lead, QA has been spending a good amount of time on balance testing over the past month. Below are just some of the many areas we've been looking at. One of our main focuses was testing the new pounce changes. Being able to switch between pounce slots while holding on to your target has been proving extremely useful in combat, allowing the user to avoid having to leap off of a cliff because your target positioned themselves on the edge of one. Having the ability to also pick between raw damage or more bleed with the different mouse buttons has also expanded the utility of the attack. Need to bring something around your size down faster? Focus on the raw damage attack. Target too big to bring down quickly? Focus on using the bleed attack to keep the pressure up with your pack. Stratosaurus now takes into account its own and its target's weights when applying bacteria through its fight. This change alone has shaken up its combat prowess, allowing it to more quickly cause smaller species to vomit while larger ones take additional bites. This change will be even more obvious when we get our apexes in, as the Stratosaurus won't be able to make them vomit in a few bites, solidifying its place in the ecosystem. Ultimately, it is still one of the smaller carnivores on the roster. Tacking on to Will's highlight of the new environmental and attack sounds for Dilophosaurus and Trudon, their envenomation mechanic has also received their suite of sounds, including ambient vocals from hallucinations. This gives the effect a whole new intensity as the player now feels like they're constantly surrounded, even when they're not. This has been very enjoyable to witness in playtesting, as people are now much more paranoid than before. Night vision has been very well received by the QA team and is undoubtedly the best iteration we've had so far. I believe this new system will finally put an end to the case of people playing with envy on constantly, as having it enabled during the day doesn't give the player any advantage while still giving them a massive advantage at night. As well as this, I've tested it against Gamma to see the difference, and the results have been very promising. I believe players won't even feel the need to increase their Gamma anymore because of how well it works. QA has been running combat tests at night, and the new system makes the difference between a nocturnal and diurnal creature that much more apparent while still giving all playables an enjoyable playing experience. For the past few months, QA has also been hard at work cracking down on bug finding, which has led to the discovery of some very strange issues. Pteranodon AI have decided that the most efficient way to take off is by burrowing their way through a tree first. Kiss and Kitten, producer, yet another month that has zipped on by. There's so much going on right now I don't know where to begin. Since I've got a Dinosaur trying to kick me in the face at the moment, I'll drop some content instead of writing a lengthy post. The animation team has been hard at work cranking out these animals that you should start seeing more of in the not-so-distant future. There's a lot of change incoming. Changes to pretty much every species in the game. Changes to the environment, changes to night vision, changes to abilities etc. There's also going to be some animation blending changes that may not make it into the next Hordetist but will likely make an appearance shortly thereafter. Here's a sampling of some of the skin work that's been done for the animals, including the tertiary skin for Dinosaur. The other tertiary skins have been created and should be making their way to you. Additionally, here's some animations for the Ostroraptor as the animation team starts knocking it out. You can expect it to be every bit as energetic as some of you may remember it being from Legacy, but in a fully realized fashion. This is an Omniraptor in sport mode, but be careful since it's also more delicate.